One day, the world will end. We don't know exactly how or when it will end, but as with everything, it will eventually come to pass. It's inescapable, unavoidable, inevitable. Oddly enough, we aren't doing anything about it. If anything, we're making it worse. We fight wars that ultimately have little purpose in the long term. We constantly and continuously contaminate the very nature that gave birth to us. We disagree on the most trivial differences, spawning conflict where it doesn't deserve to be. We thrive in luxuries made commonplace at the expense of our bond with the earth and each other. We ridicule those less fortunate than ourselves, intentionally or not. But there is reason to be hopeful. For as many times humanity faced adversity, it has risen to the challenge. For all the hypocrisy and toxicity that dwells in us, some of us do have a different opinion. No matter what lies in wait for us tomorrow, today is where we are allowed to make a choice to find meaning in one's own actions, to change every single day for the better, even if it's just the slightest of margins. After all, every song starts with a single note. While calamities and tragedies may serve to highlight the differences between us, we must not forget that all of us are human. We may speak differently, dress differently, and go about our lives differently, but we all bear the burden to carry the torch of humanity as far as it will go. This ideal will be dishonored and forgotten throughout the eras of history, but for those willing to answer the call, there is reason to believe. Sound of the Sky tells the story of optimism and determination. Despite witnessing not only the decay of the modern world, but also the conflict of the final remaining peoples, Kanata Sarami reaches for her own tomorrow, a future that should benefit not just herself, but the rest of humanity as a whole, leading the 1121st Platoon to the horizon. Entrusted with the song of hope and future, she raises her golden horn high into the air. This is my reflection on Sound of the Sky. The concept of the end, that is to say, the idea that everything in the world has an expiration date, challenges human perception of life. It forces our hand to make decisions regarding the future and because of the past. Some may see this deadline as a justification, making goals to strive for and living each day to the fullest, with hopes that their final moments will be filled with satisfaction. Others might instead view their days as meaningless, not willing to make commitments if everything they do will have little to no significance after just a few centuries. Meaning is ultimately what drives an individual to take each step forward. Whether devoting one's actions to serve another, fulfilling one's own sense of gratification through achievements, or even waiting for that purpose to become apparent, a person will not function without an objective to follow. But how do you define that meaning, especially in the wake of an ever-changing world, one that only seems to decay as time goes on? In the wake of the modern era, we've bore witness to an untold number of alterations to our species and planet, many of which are irreversible. At this point, I'd say it's harder not to know about the various issues that plague our world, given the advent of social media and its widespread influence. Considering how dangerous many of these problems are, and how difficult it can be to have all of humankind make decisions for posterity's sake, it is believable that things might take a turn for the worse. Scarily believable. Kanata grows up in that world, a fractured landscape littered with ruins of cities destroyed in battle, with countless other civilizations forever lost to the tides of war. What little countries remain are juxtaposed by further conflict, armies forced to fight over the remnants of civilization, armed with naught but the relics of aforetime. Much of history's knowledge has been forgotten, with language being shifted and scattered across the various survivors. And something as simple as music, being considered a means of instant communication rather than expressing culture and imagination. All the while, another silent threat creeps ever closer with each passing day, one arguably more frightening than war. No Man's Land is just that, a place where no one should ever be, a graveyard serving as the final resting place for not just humanity, but also for its artificial creations and anything else it comes into contact with. It's a vast desert, stretching beyond the horizon, its sand swallowing the wrecks of abandoned war machines and the crumbling walls of former homes. Once you put the pieces together, it sends a chill up your spine. To think that even in the distant future, we might be so preoccupied with trying to destroy each other that we overlook what has already and always been destroying us from the sidelines. Everywhere the young soldier looks, there's signs of the apocalypse. Her new station is partially destroyed, with illegible artifacts from a bygone age entombed in dust and debris. Just beyond the borders of Say's is no man's land, ominously expanding day by day into the small pockets of habitable soil left on Earth. Even beyond that, life has vanished from the ocean. What Kanata can see is pretty much all there is left. That is something that fascinates me personally. The world the 1121st Platoon protects was once home to, quote, magic-like technology, as we can see with the Takamikazuchi, a massive 8-legged vehicle with impossibly powerful capabilities. Humanity did reach its peak, achieving feats that are effectively science fiction, and yet they've been reduced to using 20th century bolt actions and tanks that are really just legged versions of World War II era vehicles. It's almost as if everything was wiped. We achieved such potential that we were able to destroy not just their enemy, but ourselves. What tech did survive is effectively on a timer. The observation devices that watch over the fields surrounding Say's are described by Noel as black boxes, holding the secrets of that previous era. It'd be impossible to study them, and should one stop operating, there's nothing that can be done. The fact that the Takamikazuchi was able to perform so admirably was no doubt thanks to the efforts of Noel and the other folks of Say's, but it was also most likely a miracle. Given how few of them survived the war, I'm sure that even fewer of them were able to turn on in the first place. Because much of the previous era's technology and knowledge has been lost to time, the tank's lifespan is uncertain. If anything were to happen to its core systems, there's a chance that no one would be able to repair it. I know I'm being pessimistic, but therein lies part of the ugly truth this world entails. As we evolve, we leave our mark on the environment in one way or another. Every achievement comes with a loss, whether it be to ourselves or the entire population as a whole. The problem is that humans aren't keen to paying attention to long-term threats. We prioritize our worries on day-to-day occurrences, things that could impact our friends and family in the upcoming days. When the conversation shifts to preserving the future of humanity in the long run, we might agree that it's a good idea, but it's impractical to shift one's focus to something so distant. In the time it takes to cause a positive change, it might have caused something in the present. We live short lives, and every day is filled with decisions and problems that demand our immediate attention. With the hustle of a typical person's schedule, there's not a lot of room to think about helping the future generations. People who don't even exist yet. Thus begs the question asked by the unnamed soldier. Is there a point to fighting when the world is already dying? I'll be honest with you. Things aren't pretty. We've already done major, irreversible damage to the planet. While it is possible to mend our ways and prevent further change, the methods in which to do so are unproven, expensive, and controversial in many more ways than just one. Furthermore, despite a general agreement to maintain peace, war maintains a tangible threat to our well-being. In some places, battles are commonplace, and children might have to grow up surrounded by the cacophony of earth-shattering explosions. At the higher end, some military powers possess the ability to level all of human civilization multiple times over, with a variety of flavors to choose from. What might become of us in the far future? There is a lot more to say, but I think I'll spare you from hearing it right now. Instead, what about Felicia's answer? At the end of the day, it's your choice. What you are able to do with your remaining time can only be decided by you. Even if the world is ending, Heck, even if the world is ending tomorrow, you still have time. We all have time. And time is a wonderful thing. It allows us to find the meaning that we all seek. And it opens the doors to let us into the world. This beautiful world that we inhabit, filled with wonders ranging from the unbelievably tiny to the insurmountably massive. No matter what happens, man will live on, bravely, even after losing that which we love. It is both a precious and mournful treasure, that courage to continue along the collective path of humanity, as history is written by the second. Even if Earth is predetermined to meet its end one day, to accept that fate and give up because of it is to accept defeat. The end must not be a reason to despair. Instead, see it as a goal, a deadline, to make sure you've completed everything you can up until then. Most importantly, we can dream. Everyone will have their goals. Everyone will have their obligations, responsibilities, and commitments. These are all the checkboxes that crowd one's daily list of chores. But if you turn the page, you'll find something else. A dream is called such because only one person can see it. It doesn't have to be for someone else's sake. It can be entirely selfish, a single star in the night that you stretch your hand for, no matter how impossibly far away it is. What makes a person beautiful is their ambition to chase the dream, even when the specifics are vague. Because the more you work for it, the more that dream might become reality. And when two people share the same dream, it is truly a spectacle.
過去があって、だから今がある。そして今があるから明日を信じて夢を見る。
Optimism, that which fuels the torch of humanity, is what allows us to stride forward. A force of good to combat the evil, pessimism, which tries to prevent us from reaching our goals. But that battle is continuously waged on large scale and small, for entire populations and within individuals. In times of distress, we might rely on others to lend some of their positivity, lest we find ourselves trapped, just outside where we need to be. As humankind evolved, we diverged, not just in terms of exploration, but in terms of culture. While I hold this diversity to be a blessing, a means of spreading new forms of art and further deepening the definition of a person, it also ended up driving us apart. We're all humans at our core, but the differences between us, even if they really shouldn't matter, have created the wall. No matter what we do now, there will always be an imprint in the sand where that wall was erected. Such is the society we inhabit. Whether we meant to or not, we made rules and expectations of everyone around us. You can be labeled simply by the country you were raised in. You can be judged by the tone of your voice. You can be ridiculed for your beliefs and desires. You can be rejected because of your appearance. You can be ignored because no one understands your language. We grow up surrounded by people who are just like us, and anyone who isn't usually raises a few internal barriers. With all these differences stacked between us, it's exceedingly difficult to form connections with one another. Language, tradition, culture, customs, all of these institutions that define our individual lives are only shared within set borders. What's painful to realize is that, despite the rules of any given culture being different from one another, they are fundamentally similar, and yet we view them as being foreign and abnormal. Worst of all, a dream might go unrealized because of these conflicts. A dream as simple as making others happy could fade away due to stereotypes preventing human connection. A dream as inspiring as world travel could be halted by passerby who don't trust those from another nation. In order to overcome this barrier and find that dormant mutual bond, oftentimes we use art, something that requires neither language nor tradition to derive emotion from. Creativity is a means of expressing one's emotion through the abstract, giving birth to ideas and stories without explicit statement. From paintings and statues that bear history within the materials used in their inception, to poems and novels that weave hidden narratives through lines of text, art can be appreciated and accepted regardless of social norms. And what better way to broadcast a shared human love? What better way to destroy cultural barriers, forget ingrained stereotypes, and maybe even cause soldiers to lower their weapons, than the sound of music? How beautiful it is that a series of noises can evoke such emotion. How precious it is that, through a collection of notes on a sheet, a story can be told. How inspiring it is that plucking a string, or tapping a drum, or pulling a bow, or humming a verse, or blowing a horn can gather hearts together. Kanata knows this. She was saved from the terrors of war by a princess's song, and she knows that she can share this blessing with the world. The world we live in is more fragmented than ever. Considering how easy it is to communicate with each other through the internet, there is a tragic irony in that disconnect between populations, and even within populations. If anything, connections through the internet are shrouded by a veil of anonymity, preventing intimate bonds from forming and allowing malevolence to spread with little repercussion. For everything we've done to make staying in touch more convenient, it's harder than ever to keep within reach. Even so, there is reason to believe, even in this broken world. Art is one of the few ways to openly express a shared human appreciation, regardless of country barriers and social norms. From song to literature, painting to dance, natural color to digital expanse, an individual's creative work remains eternal, a legacy that shows what we are capable of and what we can truly be proud of. Humanity has written its tale up until now, so it shouldn't stop for anything. There's still so much more left to say, and plenty more who are willing to lift the torch further and further up the mountain. If we give up, everyone's dreams will be lost. Her song can change the world. Kanata knows this, so, with the dream of humanity's last in her heart, she raises her golden horn towards the sky to sing the song of tomorrow. We might have a lot of things to worry about right now, but we also have a lot of time to deal with them. I know it's easy to succumb to the pressures of everyday life, so taking care of the planet isn't exactly high on your to-do list, especially since no one really knows how to take care of the planet. That said, humans deal with a ton of wishy-washy stuff all the time. Among those vague things are dreams, those often unrealistic goals we keep in the back of our mind, forever saying, I'll work on that tomorrow, day after day. What I'm trying to say is, don't give up. No matter where we are in life, there is reason to believe. The world is ending. That is a fact that, even if we magically solve all of humanity's problems, will not change. Still, that shouldn't be an excuse to accept defeat. The world might be ending, but there's no need to rush. And as horrible of a species we are, we also tend to overlook all the good that we do. Admittedly, we've polluted our world to the point of permanent damage, but we also have means of recovery within our reach. As for the hostility that plagues our communications, benevolence can also be shared, like leaves on the wind in an uncertain afternoon. Yes, I'm just a humble writer that's telling you things you've probably heard 1,000 times. What I say here will have little impact on the world as a whole, a drop in the ocean of voices. But if I could deliver this story, this message about cherishing the time you have left, then I will. At the very least, find solace in the fact that we aren't facing the end of the world yet. You still have time. As for the members of the 1121st Platoon, they are facing the end of the world, but they're still smiling. So why don't you?